Welcome back to another episode of 22 at the Lips. I'm your podcast host, Alexis Hardwick. And if you're new to this journey or if you've been here along the way, welcome. This is the podcast from EMS providers to EMS providers and healthcare providers and your average everyday bystander along the way that you just so happen to join upon this journey. Thank you for being here. So kind of why I started this podcast is because I find incredible people along the way. I find people in my journey of EMS and where I'm at, and people that have started either before me, after me, in the cusp of where I'm at today. And I think they have a lot of wisdom, a lot of advice to share. And even like my cousin who listened to the podcast, she was like, it's so cool to like see more than just like that person is a paramedic, but like you kind of get to know them a little bit more. And like you hear about their calls. Everybody gets something from every episode. Fingers crossed. And here we are. So today, an exemplar example of what a good paramedic is Brady Doucet. Brady.
Say, actually.
Doucet. I've always said, well, I'm terrible at this game.
No, it's Louisiana. It's all French. That's all it is.
A chapelaya.
A chapelaya, Natchitoches, as it's spelled like Natchitoches.
What's another one? Pecan.
Yeah, pecan.
So Brady, if you want to tell the people who you are, what you stand for, because I work with Brady. I've seen he is an incredible person. He's done a lot of cool stuff. We'll get into that, but Brady, if you want to tell the people who you are, what you stand for, what's your story, my guy?
So, I mean, my name is Brady. I've been in EMS 6 years, I made. Been going on 2 years as a paramedic. I'm a field training officer, critical care medic. I've also done my time like as a supervisor in a supervisory role.
Yeah.
A lot of phone calls. It's interesting.
Babysitting grown adults. Anyway.
That's every job.
Yeah.
I know it's going to sound a little cliche, but I kind of like to stand for being the positive light on somebody's bad day. I mean, a lot of EMS providers, you know, we get the mama is not feeling so good, or
you know, for a few days.
I mean, patients like that are really kind of like my pride and joy, because it's very easy to forget in our field, like, a lot of the good that you do. And it is just being able to sit there and talk with your patients. It's probably one of the highlights of my day. I mean, you never meet a new you always meet a new person. I want to say always, because you know, in our field we have our
I openly call them frequent flyers. Not to their face, but
I like to think of Amazon like it's like, oh, I'm here again. But instead of a credit card, it's your medical insurance.
Oh,
but again.
Imagine with one of those like QR scanners, like in the back of the ambulance.
Oh my God, I really want like Life Hack to put something in. Like, it's just gonna ask you a few questions and give you a little tip.
You're like turning your head the whole time, not looking. I'd be peeping out of my eyes and be like, oh. Only 10%? All right.
Hey, look, every little bit helps.
Next time I won't try my stand-up routine. Those poor patients, they don't realize every time they get in my ambulance, it's usually just me telling terrible jokes. And
but that's the best part. Exactly.
They can't leave.
Exactly. Once those doors shut, I mean, you're not. They're not. I'm not stuck back there with them. They're stuck back there with me.
You only feel a little sleepy. So Brady, in your 6 years, which if you don't work in this field, it's not like 6 years. It's like, oh, 6 years passed, come and gone, whatever. 6 years translated to real life years is more like, I would say 10, 12.
In the parish that we work in, probably 15.
Jesus Christ. I grew up in Watson. So like in the area we work in, and I think I just grew up in a very sheltered bubble because I was like, Denham, Watson, it's all safe and secure. And then I start working here and I'm like, never mind.
Exactly.
It's a scary place.
Sheltered. You grew up like not even 20 minutes from. Oh.
Yeah.
But you also grew up not even like 20 minutes from Baton Rouge. Like.
And my dad was a Baton Rouge cop. I was very sheltered. Against.
Well, then he did a good job.
He did. My dad's the real MVP.
Job.
Shout out to Dad. So Brady, in your vast experience, what little rapid fire questions?
Mm-hmm.
We go on a variety of calls, whether it's an overdose, whether it's a fall, whether it's cardiac related, whether it's respiratory or psych or any animal bites, all of the types of calls that we go on. What is your favorite?
Oh God, I have a few, but recently you said animal bites and it made me think of one of my most recent ones. We were out in kind of like the boonies of Livingston Parish, and we got called for a snake bite. And where this specific area was, they were about 40 minutes to an hour, away from the closest hospital with antivenom. So I'm communicating with dispatch, talking with them like, hey, can we try to see if AirMed will look into this? Like, if it's poisonous, they need it now. Yeah. So we go out there and I'm assessing the patient, and she said it felt like a poke on her ankle. I'm looking directly where she pointed to where she felt the poke, and there's no puncture wound. Nothing. She said she was just cutting like tree limbs, and she felt a poke, and she said she jammed like the hedge clippers into the ground where she thought she saw the snake. And she said it was small, like a baby, which like out here, babies can't control their venom. So I'm like,
they're even more dangerous.
Oh God, like, what are we doing? Why is AirMed not on this call? Like, so I go out there to look and see if I can see if the snake's poisonous or what. I see the hole where she like jammed it into the ground, and I just see a little something. I'm like, what is that? And I pull it out. It was a old tattered shoelace.
Oh no.
And then I went, I look at the tree limbs and I see a bunch of like thorns out of it.
Oh, so they be.
And I went, oh no. So I go back in there and I'm talking with her. I'm like, ma'am, I'm pretty sure this is what got you everything. Yeah. I see her like heart rate go from like 120 and anxiety to like 86. Oh. She's breathing fine. Everything's good. And I'm like, you want to go to the hospital? Hi. Cool.
Yeah.
Hi, bye.
A little bit of deductive reasoning.
So really, like, I just had to share that because of the animal bite thing, and I thought that was hilarious. So this one is just a funny one. So I decided I work Unit 191, which is one of the busiest trucks in our whole coverage area, which spans our good little nickname for it, Run 90 Run. I mean, we in like the 5 parishes that we cover, it's probably one of the busiest trucks. So I decided, because the medic was feeling ill that night, I worked the 24 on it.
Oh, Jesus.
So that was, at the time, I think I finally had like a break. I had run 9 or 10 calls within like the first 12 hours of the shift.
Checks, yeah.
And then I ran 3 more after that when I got onto the night shift, like just back to back. My last one was like a pediatric seizure. So it was like, it was just.
It's a lot.
Oh, I was like spiraling, and I was like, look, I need food, and I need to like close my eyes just a little bit, get some kind of rest. I'll go ahead. and I'm finally able to eat something. I scarf it down because I was like, I'm gonna get an emergency. Like, so I go ahead and I shut my eyes for a little bit to try and get some rest. My partner at the time he just got out of an accelerated paramedic program. So he was doing his clinical portion of it. So he's there with me. And then as I close my eyes, I'm shutting them. It was maybe not even 10 minutes. And then I hear a knock on the window, and I open it for a quick second, look to my right, and it was Adam.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Hey, bud, how are you doing?" And I'm like,
"What do you want?"
I'm like, "I'm tired." And then I hear incident assigned, and I'm like, "Oh no." I look down, shortness of breath, and it was in Watson. We were in Walker. So I was like, "Oh, great." So a 15, 20-minute response time.
Yeah.
This is going to be fun. Wonder what the patient's going to be like when I get there. So as we're rolling to the call, or right before we left, Adam was like, "Do you want me to take this one, bud? Do you want to try to get some sleep?" And I'm like, I got it. I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate it."
Jesus.
So we're running to it on the way there. My tummy is not
No.
good. My tummy hurt. So I'm like, oh no, what's going on? We get to the place. I immediately am like healing over. I'm like, oh, this is not good. So I'm walking to the door, and like, I mean, it was like seamless. It looked like I'm walking in with the monitor and the bag, and I go ahead, and then it's just like stand, like just vomit, and I'm like, all right, let's go to the patient. So I go to the patient.
Driveway?
This was in the driveway. Yeah. So I'm walking up to the patient, and I'm talking to the husband. I'm like, "Hey, where's the patient?" Directs me over there. I see the patient, and it's one of those like you as soon as you see, and I'm like, we haven't even gotten the patient hooked up to the monitor yet. This was first look, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to tube this patient because it was failure and that like point of like do something or they're going to arrest.
Oh, love it. Okay.
So I'm immediately like getting nebs put up because she had a history of COPD. I listened to the lungs, and it was like in the lowers, you heard very, very slight wheezing, and in the uppers, it was absent. She was that shut off.
Jeez.
So I'm
Tight.
nebs, everything. And as soon as I get the neb like twisted on and I hand it to my student, like attach the non-rebreather to her.
Yeah.
Again, stomach. And I'm like, oh, this isn't good.
Wrong time.
Yep. So I immediately run outside, expunge I purge my abdominal system, my GI tract. I then go over exactly. I immediately go over the radio, and I'm like, "Hey, is Adam still at Walker?" And dispatch is like, "Uh-huh. You need him?" And I'm like, "Please." So I go back in there, and I am like getting ready. I'm drawing up Solumetrol, and Adam calls me, and I have him on my thing while I'm drawing it up. I'm like, "What's up, bud?" And he's like, "What have you done so far?" And I'm like, "This. Get here now." Go ahead. And he's like, "Okay, try to give it IV if you can," which obviously is what I was gonna do.
Yeah.
So I go ahead and I'm looking. Nothing. Everywhere. I even went so far to look for an EJ. Nothing. Nowhere.
Perfect.
Like,
Perfect.
Exactly. So I'm like, she's gonna get this IM. So I gave it IM. And then I'm like, oh no, again.
Bro, not the third time.
I go back out there again, everything. I then come back in.
I just want Adam to roll up as you're like hurling on the front yard.
I do. So watch. It gets better. So we were in a very tight space. Like, I mean, there was I could barely fit my leg in between where the dresser and the edge of the bed was.
Jesus.
I had to jump over and everything like that. I physically, like, I don't know what it was, but it was like brute strength. Just moved the bed. This patient weighed a little over 300 pounds.
Jesus.
I manhandled her onto the stair chair, like just under her arms, lifted her up, moved her, sat her on the stair chair. Fire department is like, what in God's name? Like, just how did it? Yeah. So I get him on the stair chair. We get him out. We roll him back outside. As soon as we get the patient onto the stretcher, because my mindset was we need to get this patient in the back. Like, I need to start doing more. If anything, I need to start getting like my like ET tube set up. Because if I'm gonna have to take the airway at this point. So I go ahead. As soon as I get her on the stair chair, again, stomach. I then go to a corner, out. My partner in the fire department was like, look, hey, we're going to take them to the unit. We're going to start getting everything set up for you. And I'm like, okay, I'll be right there in a second. Fire department and my partner knew everything that was going on with me at the moment. Yeah. We're going to get everything set up for you. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I felt really dizzy after that. So I'm like looking at the ground, like, like after you've had like an all night bender and you are just like looking at the ground, holding the wall.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm looking at the ground, trying to make sure, like, okay, we're gonna keep just walking and everything. And then all I feel is like 2 hands grab my like shoulders and just me stop, like I was running into a brick wall. And then I was like, that's another pair of boots. And I looked up and it was Adam. And I was like, oh, thank you, God. So Adam was like, what all have you done? We're getting her into the unit. And what I told him everything that I've done so far. He gets him in the back. And he's like, okay, you go sit in the back of your unit. I'll check on you in a second. And I went, okay. I go in the back of my unit, puke again. Oh, it was bad. It was like food poisoning.
Dude, I was about to say, it sounds like food poisoning.
It was straight food poisoning. So again, and I am like hurtled over the trash can and I hear the back doors open up and then I look up for a second, like how a gator is up from under the water and all you see is the eyes. It was just eyes.
Peering over the edge of the trash.
And Adam's like, hey bud, I'm getting ready to like intubate, like, you good? And then all he saw was me pale white and then like the thumb just go up, like, good. So I felt really good after that one. So I was like, okay, like, I'm feeling better. Like, I'm gonna go see if Adam needs help. I open the door, look in, and it was like, I wish I could have gotten a portrait of this because all I saw was laryngoscope in mouth, tube in the air. And then I look over and then his partner doing getting another 12 lead. And then my partner like BVM and in title ready. Like, it was, I just wish I could have seen that. And it was like a freeze frame where they all just turned and looked at me. Adam got the tube, everything. Once all that happened, again, stomach. And I went, and I'm back to my unit. Puke again.
God.
I'm over the trash can and I'm like, I just want this to stop. Like, why? And then Adam opens the door and goes, hey bud, so I kind of need you to ride in with me to the hospital and bag while I do everything else. And I'm like, can do. Hold over the trash can. We take the 20-minute drive to the hospital and it's arm curdling a trash can in one hand while I'm that bagging the patient and constantly giving him like updates on in title and everything like that. And we get to the hospital. They see me like that, bagging everything like that. The doctor rolls in and was like, y'all did this? And then I pointed to him. I was like, him. Like he got this. Like I'm like, and then Adam gave the full report of just everything that happened. He gives a report. He goes out back to the truck, and I was gone. He was like, "Where's Brady? I am in their bathroom." Just like I swear, I thought I was gonna pass out in their bathroom, and I was like,
"Jeez, man."
So you know how like when you're in a boat and you have like the tie, the engine killer,
Yeah.
when you fall out and whatever. I was holding the like help pull thing of like if I pass out, it's going down with me. Like this is so somebody will know where I'm at. So
Kentucky Rock.
exactly, just like oh god. Adam then finds me, and they're like, so I would have got off at 5 that morning, and it was like 3 o'clock at that point, and they had already called the on-duty supervisor at that point,
Yeah.
and everything like that, and they were like, "I think he needs to go home."
You gotta go home, man.
And they were like, and he was like, "Yeah, I think it's time for him to go home." And I was like,
"Please,
thank you." Those were two very like memorable calls at that point, just because I was like trying to do everything I could for that patient. Meanwhile, I could have also been a patient.
I was gonna say you were literally the patient in the other truck,
and I was just like, I can do it. I can do it. No, I can't. I can't. I'm
not
good.
today.
But I mean, I've had so many interesting things, like all to like where one day I've had like I got learned bingo all in one shift, trauma, stroke, and STEMI.
Jeez.
I mean, I've had there's been so many interesting cases. Somewhere I'm just sitting there scratching my head, and then I'll like turn to Adam, who's our guru, and I'm like, "Hey, bud, what do you make of this?" And he's like, "I don't even know." And I'm like,
cool.
Okay. Man, I love this job. Oh, it's so great.
And that's all like, we'll have patients in the back, and they're like, "Oh, how do you do this job? I bet it's so hard." I'm like, it really, I mean, yes. But also, it's just the fact of like, you never know. You never
know what's going to happen. Like, that's probably one of my favorite things about that. You don't know. I mean, you can have a day where you literally run 3 calls and it's all monoatopian.
Mm-hmm.
Or you get on shift and the trauma gods just had your number that day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was this yesterday, so get that.
Yeah.
It rained once, so everybody was losing their mind.
Oh, that's my favorite thing to say. That's one of my favorite jokes. It's like, we live in the state of Louisiana. It rains a lot. Everyone grew up here. Why do you have your hazards on going 30 on the interstate? You should know how to drive on the interstate. You should know how to drive.
My favorite is you get like to the scene. It starts raining and then it stops, and you get to the scene. You're already like, you know what part of the road it's at. You know where that curve. You know how people straighten out. It's like, all right, we already know. Like because there was that one drop of rain, and now suddenly.
Ooh, I actually have one more call that I wanted to tell you, and I actually got to use a little bit of like where I grew up as like viewpoint. I'll never forget this one too, because I was an EMT at that time. That was my first ever 24-hour shift. On that shift, let me put it to you this way: PCG called in a stat EMT BLS brain bleed, where we were like, "Man, this is not BLS." Like, so it was already just interesting from the get-go. Well, we're out in Point Parish, and for a lot of you like that don't live in Louisiana, that it's surrounded by False River. So it is a very like swampy place.
Yeah.
I grew up and was born and raised out in Galliano, which is bordering like the next town over is a little town called Golden Meadow, and then it is Grand Isle, an island in the Gulf of Mexico.
Correct.
The bayou that I grew up on legitimately feeds into the Gulf of Mexico. I'm from as far south in the state as you can get.
Yeah. You said Grand Isle and it was enough.
I fit the MO of like, oh, he had a pet gator and rode his gator to school kind of thing. So we're out there in that area and we get called for a psych. All we got was he was making suicidal statements. So we get out there, we're with PD, and we're like, where's the patient? And they're like, oh, he booked it. And we're like, okay, like, well, what's the story? And basically this patient like ran into his like living room with all of his family members, said, I wanna die. And then in front of them, opened a pill bottle, downed the whole pill bottle, and then downed almost a whole fifth of whiskey just right in front of them. They called 911 immediately, as one would.
That would open.
And we get out there and they're like, oh yeah, no, he grew up in like this whole area, so he knows the swamp like the back of his hands.
You're not gonna find.
We sit out there for 3 hours looking for this guy. Like fire department even had their FLIR cameras out, like looking for any kind of heat signature in the swamp and everything. Me and the sheriff's department literally went trudging through the swamp trying to find this guy.
Jeez.
And just before that, I was like, we have to find this guy, because they were like, well, we'll just come out in the morning and look with the helicopter and do an aerial view. And I was like, he's not going to make it till the morning. And they're like, why? And I'm like, look, if we don't find him, something else will.
If it hasn't already.
And then I literally took this was like 1 a.m. at this point. So I took his like big flashlight, as you know, all cops carry. And I went click and shined it over the river. And all you saw was nothing but like gator eyes. Just like,
oh, absolutely not.
So I was like, something else will find him.
Yeah.
So we're trudging through the swamp. We're looking for him. And I swear to God, I hear a cough. Got everybody to stop. And I'm looking everywhere. I'm going through everything. They're just like, and we're going to keep going. And I'm like, I'm not going to stay here by myself.
Yeah.
I'm just going to walk with them. They found him at the last second because he tried to like loop around back into his house through the back way. They found him in the house, hiding in the closet after that. And he is head to toe in mud from hiding in the swamp. And just a little thought of me was like, I got to ask this guy. I went, hey, bud, where were you hiding at? And he was like, oh, y'all were right on top of me. I thought when I coughed, it gave it away. And I went right there. I was like, Jesus. He said he was like, for my Call of Duty fans, like he was like all gillied up. Like he just had like brush and everything over his body. He was laying on the side, covering himself in mud so he wouldn't be seen. And I was like, you know what? A for effort.
It's genius.
A for effort. Like, that was great.
Please don't, but like, nice, man.
I mean, you were committed. Like,
okay. So you've got your FTO.
Mm-hmm.
Kudos, man. I like teaching. I don't like training. I've learned that very quickly. You've also got your CCT, so you've got a whole arsenal. What is, out of all the medications, out of all the basic to the most advanced, what I would say is TXA. But out of all the medications, what is your favorite one to give?
Hands down, Narcan. I don't know why. I
IV or
love
IN or IM?
all of the above.
I
Like,
know.
you laugh, but my last cardiac arrest was a Ross, and I gave Narcan IO.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that, I don't know what it is. I love giving it. Obviously, I don't overboard it. I mean,
Yeah.
as you know, like I have my FTO, so I love to teach and I do love to teach and I love to train. So I pride myself in that even though the fire departments out here know that we shouldn't give copious amounts of Narcan for the flash pulmonary edema, their hands are kind of tied because
They also
like,
don't know how far away we're going to be.
yeah, they don't know how far away we're going to be, and they're limited because their only supplies is like straight 4 milligrams off the bat. So I pride myself in knowing that they actually do know, and they try to be cautious about it, because I try to take the time out and teach our fellow coworkers, like, hey, like, let's kind of dial that back a little bit. I love my people I work with.
Same. I always say love our volleys.
Yes.
Love our volleys.
So I kind of like to think of bringing out the dead, bringing out that. So like, just bring that guy banging. Like, I love Narcan because I really want to start a punch card system. Like, oh, I'm here again for the 5th time, and click 5th Narcan. Like, I believe it or not, those are some of my best calls. And every now and then, we get the patients that I am a firm believer that addiction is a disease.
Facts. Yeah.
And every now and then you get those patients that genuinely want the help. And that is like, you never know what you're going to get. Again, it's like, am I going to get somebody that is genuinely wanting help at this point? Or am I going to get Joe Blow that was just on his 5th ride? That
we were here literally 3 hours ago.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic, and that's, I think, what I love most about it is it's like I don't know what I'm gonna get, and then once they finally come back and I sit and I talk with them, you find those patients that genuinely want to help. Like, perfect keynote onto that. So I had a patient once before. I had like CISM activated on, and this was a cluster of a span that happened. It was the pneumatic juju. I was about 3 months in. We had just dropped off a patient, and we just dropped off a patient at Auctioner in Baton Rouge, and we get a call in Walker for a teenager self-inflicted GSW to the head. We are booking it. Yeah. Like, we get there, and unfortunately there was nothing that we could do. We see it, and we didn't work the call, but still just witnessing that and having to look at. That's why it's like I respect everything that your father done, because it was a rough situation. So we I'm talking with the deputies, having to tell them, like, hey, look, that nothing. Like, there's nothing we can do. So we finished that call, and at the time, our regular dispatcher was on lunch, so they had somebody filling in for dispatch at that moment. I was not okay. And my partner could tell. Like, I feel naked without my hat. I'm always wearing a hat, and you know that. But I mean, I threw my hat. I was like just spiraling. Like I couldn't. I didn't know what to do. I was angry that there was nothing that I could do and feeling helpless. Like I couldn't help render aid.
Yeah.
Um, Immediately after that, my partner was radioing dispatch like, "Hey, we need to go back to the station. Like, we kind of need a little breather right now." Immediately, we get put on it comes in as a cardiac arrest. Ended up being an overdose. I had to call dispatch. And at the time, after being dispatched and we were on the way, our dispatcher came back from lunch. I was like, "What's going on? Like, call me." Called him, told him everything. He then looked at the call we had before
Yeah.
and was like, "Oh,
Absolutely
no, like,
not.
you shouldn't have even been
No.
dispatched to this."
No.
But he also told me, like, we didn't have any other units in the parish. I was the only unit. So I ran that call. I ran the overdose. And thankfully, it was somebody that really wanted to help.
Yeah.
I was able to do everything, take him to the hospital. It'd be good. Like, that kind of gave me some little, like, solace in the end that I could help somebody.
Yeah.
But, oh, dude, that was a fiasco of a day. Like, right after that.
Dude, especially when you've got, I mean, one, like the adrenaline of when you're going to that call, even like the ones that I look at my partner Danny, I'm like, I don't think so, Danny. Even so, you've got that adrenaline going because you're still in your mind as you're trying to do, going through like, all right, we'll do this, that, and the other. Here's the closest hospital. Here's what I need to do, et cetera, et cetera. And then you get there, and then, I mean, we're like you said, it's our job. We're trained to help, and
Yep.
then knowing that you can, and then knowing. Meanwhile, like you're as mentally well-rounded as you can be in this field, but
Yeah.
like like there's nothing I can do, but still, it doesn't make it. That's hard, but just go out. You better than me because I would have been like, "Oh, we gonna dispatch this? That's cute." You must show up, but like also though, I mean, with that nature of that dispatch code, it's
Yeah.
yeah. So as an FTO, what do you feel like is a good piece of advice for people that are just starting in this field? I know like I also try to gear a lot of like the things that the few times I've had a student or whenever I teach I try to think of like what would baby Alexis would have wanted to know? What is something somebody could have told me that I feel like could have helped me? What is that thing for you that you tell people?
Um, I see like a lot of, we have the generic term like Ricky Rescue, like gung ho wanting to go out there and save lives.
Yeah.
I see that a lot. And while I'm all for it, I want them to achieve their goals and achieve
Yeah.
their dreams. I also try to give them that little bit of reality of like, look, this is a rough field, a rough like profession. It will chew you and spit you back out at times.
Mhm.
Like, my advice that I always tell them is find your people when you start. You know, when we go through burnout and stuff like that, you start to feel like you can't relate to anybody else that doesn't work in EMS. You feel very secluded. And while at times some of that can be true, like the
Mm.
only people that kind of know what we go through are the people that we go through it with.
Facts. Yeah.
So I always tell them to find your people, find your close friends. You know, a lot of companies and a lot of different places always say, like, "Oh, we're here, we're a family." I hear with that, like, I mean, you don't. We all bleed red. We're all the same. We go through the same thing. So find your people, lean on them when you need to, and be there for them when they need someone to lean on to. In the end, we go through this together, but we're the ones that will, eventually we'll get over it. Like, but you need your people by you at all times. Because I look at my people and legitimately they are family to me. I mean, it didn't even involve work, but when my father had passed, I immediately told them. And I mean, literally, when I got back from my hometown, they were at my house. Found out one of them had been smoking brisket all day, literally to bring to the house and for us to have food, like, had just sat there with me, gone through pictures that I had found of myself and my dad, and just they were there for me in ways that I'm forever thankful for. So find your people, lean on them. They will be your family.
Facts. So it's important to have like your support system outside this job, because we're more than just this job. However, it's also such a deeper magnitude of like, I mean, we were talking about off the air, like you run these calls and you don't know, like you don't know if what you did was better or worse for the patient. You don't know if this little thing could have been better. And then you go back and you're like, man, I should have done XYZ. But you have those people that you call and they're like, no, you were fine.
You did everything.
Even if you weren't there, even if they weren't there, even if they weren't starting the line for you, like they know because they've been in that situation or they can see it. And having that person just tell you, like, you did everything you could, it's fine. It's not fun, but also like it makes you the weight. It's the weight off the shoulders. It's the, okay, somebody else gets it. And even just if nothing else, but like that sense of community, that sense of there are other people who are here with me in this giant, monstrous field. It's reassuring to say the least. And
it is. And it's also reassuring to know, like, I mean, it's not even our area. If you go to a completely different part of the state, part of the country, they treat you like family too. And that's the crazy part about it, is in EMS, we are literally one big, giant, dysfunctional family that love one another. It's so reassuring to know that.
Very, it's also the same people that'll tell you like, oh, you need to grow up.
Like the Australian students that we have that come over here, completely different country.
Yeah.
They come over here. I have been really close friends with a lot of the students. I mean, they're still in school at the moment. Oh, absolutely. One of them's like, look, even if I don't come back to work in the States, like, I'm coming back to see y'all. And I'm like,
I believe it.
My door is always open to you. Like, you have a place to stay.
And stuff.
Come here. Like, family. That's all it is.
Well, Brady, is there anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to wisdom, advice, knowledge?
Okay. I mean,
perfect. Brady, if that's all you got, that's all I got. And dude, it's an honor. It's an honor to be your friend. Oh, ooh.
I love you so much. Christ.
Oh my God. That's all I got.
The 22 at the Lips podcast is designed to support, not replace, the relationship that exists between a practitioner and his or her medical director. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host, guest, and not necessarily of Master Medics. The information provided during this podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for your approved protocols.